So this is a little house my mom had bought some years ago, and it's got a bathroom in it that is just the light. The camera doesn't help it. It almost looks worse in camera than. I mean, it's bad. Don't get me wrong, but it hasn't been cleaned in a long time, and it's just not. I don't even know what it is. So my job today is just to demo it. I didn't bring any of my cameras, and it's such a tight space. Time lapse wouldn't help, but I'm just trying to get a little bit of video in the unlikely event that I decide to make a YouTube video out of this. I don't do home remodel stuff for a living. I'm just a home gamer trying to save some money. So my job today is just to rip this shower surround out and tub out. And hopefully I can get that done today. This is effectively my third trip. It's hard to call them days because I come over here and work get enough material out of here to fill a truck, and then by the time I make it to the landfill and empty everything out, it pretty much shoots the day out. So they turn into 4, 6, maybe 7-hour days. The floor joists are completely shot out of this thing. The floor has been scabbed over and sistered together once before. It's too hard to figure out what I'm going to film and not have a zillion hours, so I'm just going to sort of bring you through what I'm doing when I do this, but because I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm not sure how far this bathroom is going to go back to. Right now it looks like there's not a lot to work with here, so it's all going to have to come out, and I'm just sort of making my way through doing the demolition now. And there used to be a closet. There's another closet behind these doors. Sorry, I'm filming with my camera. But I'm going to maybe do a time lapse and voiceover of this because it's just going to be too much to edit and make any sense out of to remember where I picked up and left off and all that. Well, I've done demoing this bathroom for a while. It really hasn't been interesting, so I haven't documented much of it. I've just been tearing the walls out, the floors out, the joists out, the plumbing out, installing new plumbing, installing new joists, and reframing the sill plate. Honestly, the terminology for this is sort of, I'm not sure what some of these are or what you would call them because of the way the house was constructed. Typically they build the floor joists and then they deck it and then build the walls and tilt them up, but in this case they didn't do that. So you'll normally see the sill plate sitting on top of the plywood, and as you can see there, the 2x8 has the sill plate directly on top of it. And then they framed out the plywood afterwards. So they put the walls up in this house before they put the floor down, which is interesting to me. And you can also see they didn't, the king and the jack studs, the whole place isn't built in a typical fashion. The studs are 16 inches on center. The floor joists are 16 on center, more or less, because they stagger them, but they didn't always consistently stagger them. So some of them are 3/4 of an inch off, but I'm just going through documenting. I've been under the house plumbing, fitting the new joists, and cutting out all the rotten wood. The things that have been helping me, the cordless tools are so great. You know, I really have appreciated the cordless tools more of this job than I can recall. And then also my little shop vac. This is one of the Stealth Sonic DeWalt things. I'm typically not a big DeWalt fan, but every manufacturer has their key things. I like their 12-volt stuff, buy it more or less. But this has been really handy. It's a small one. I think the big one would have been nice, but only for this one time. For the other 99% of my time, the 5-gallon one I think is going to serve me well. But I'm going to periodically bring you along. I'm just getting back to the put-back stage, as it were. So I just wanted to sort of touch base because I have some early video, which you've seen, hopefully. And now it's just a matter of going through and cutting out and replacing all this. The good thing about the way the house is constructed, and I can't get up there to show you, But it's just I'll put in a picture of the trusses. There's no load-bearing walls in this entire house. So I don't have to worry about what I'm cutting, to the extent that I do not hang more. Well, for example, I've got this, I can't back up far enough because this is a small room, but I've got this wall, 2/3 of this wall hanging from the trusses, sort of. There's blocking up there that doesn't touch either side. It really is a poorly constructed house, but as it were, I just don't want to hang any more from the trusses than I need to. So I just sort of incrementally go through and patch it in. And it's, you know, sort of sampled here. You can see where I've cut in new pieces of wood, scabbed it in. There's a little Jamaican Public Works going on. You know, it looks a little shabby. But the way the house is constructed, it's not going to make a difference. And it's as strong as it ever was. It may be stronger, which isn't saying much, but that's what I'm doing. And my buddy Warren says, you know, are you doing what you know, or do you know what you're doing? In this case, I've got a little bit of experience with this kind of framing, just in high school construction class. I don't do much woodworking stuff, but I know enough to know that this wasn't done correctly, and I think any amateur would know that. You know, anybody would know that there's, if you look at the very top of the screen, there's a piece of wood not connected to anything. You know, who does that? Who gets paid to do that? And I would hazard to guess I know why. And under the house, as I cleaned, I have found more cans of beer. There's got to be 50 beers underneath the corner. That's just what they threw under the house. I don't know if that was a day's worth of work or not. I would guess it was probably a good solid afternoon worth of work for these guys. But they were probably all loaded when they built this place. But that's what I got for now. I'll bring you back when I get more. Well, it's been a couple weeks since I've started this project. Months, maybe. And I've been sick with the flu or whatever's going around now. So it delayed me a little bit. I tried to come over and work through it, but just my energy's been down. So my buddy Frank came over and helped me yesterday. He came over and gave me some inspiration. I tend to get a little scattered with things. I'll do a little demo, do a little bit of construction, do a little bit of wiring, do a little bit of this, and it's helpful to have somebody come over and, you know, keep me focused. So that was a big help. He came over and cut the wood and set this wall. What I'm doing now is it might, you know, I'm sure there's a million things people would disagree with what I'm doing here. However, quality of life is a factor that doesn't get talked about very often in construction. What I have to do is finish the plumbing, and what I don't want to have to do is crawl underneath the house every time I want to do anything. So I have the sink, which is going to go here. I have the shower pan, which is sitting in place. The shower head I got is not complete, so I've got to order a new one of those. But what I want to do is leave this big gaping hole in there. That will give me the ability to measure the fall on the pipes and make up all the connections and do everything that I need to do in a realistic fashion. I'll be nice and comfortable while I work in this big hole. And then the very last thing that I'll do is come over and set that board and set the toilet, do all that, you know, put the joists in and do all the other stuff. So that will make my life significantly easier, I believe. But that's it for this update. Well, I'm slowly sneaking up on this project. It is really messy in here, but it is like the rest of my projects. It gets done. It's not pretty, but it gets done. Most of the time. I don't finish all my projects, that's for sure. Speaking of that, I missed some joist hanger nails. But I'm getting ready to button this up. I'm doing it a piece at a time because I do not want to have to crawl underneath this house again if I do not have to. I'm being a little lazy on some shortcuts. I'm going to run the hot water on the outside of the house. This is not a fancy place. It is not a great part of town. It is not anything worth putting us a lot of... I want to do it right, but I also don't want to crawl underneath the house anymore than I have to. So some of it's a little wonky, and I got to cut out some of the... So I didn't like the pipe hangers, so I ended up using real conduit straps for some of the stuff. But what I wanted to show you here is what I have on top of the beams, the floor joists, is is a roll of this deck tape. I think I forget exactly what they call it. X-Fasten. It is called joist tape, I believe, and it's made for outdoor decking. And when water gets on top of in between the deck boards and the joists, it just sits there and rots the top of the boards out. And I'll probably have either insert a picture now, or you would have seen a bunch of pictures where the old wood was completely, rotted away on the top of it. I'm not saying that the wood's not going to leak if moisture gets trapped in there, but this is sort of a belt and suspenders kind of thing, because I have pressure treated wood with the joist tape on there, as would an outdoor deck. But if it adds another year or 5 years or whatever, it's worth the additional, I think it was $15 a roll or something like that. It might be psychosomatic, but that's what I've chosen to do here. A little bit of spastic, plumbing here. I've got CPVC clamps, but they don't hold the pipes up, and I just don't like the way CPVC is so floppy. So I've got some extra plumbing straps on there. Again, I just don't want to get underneath here again, so if it looks a little wonky, it's because it is. And maybe an extra set of joist hangers down there. Again, belt and suspenders, maybe a little bit of redundancy. My goal here was to just get this bathroom solid again, because I put a roof on the house, painted the house, done everything, and then sort of working backwards. But that's where I'm at. This is probably my 6th week out here. Took a couple weeks demo, a couple weeks floor joist, took a week of vacation, and I'm just trying to get through it all. At this point, I had stopped filming, and all I have is the bits and pieces of pictures that I took for this project. So I'm going to try to do my best to voice over it. There I am, standing in the hole, getting ready to do some plumbing underneath everything. I'd laid the plywood down and mocked up the pre-manufactured pan. One of the biggest problems I had was the vent stack. I had to move the whole vent stack and plumb it up through the roof. That was a chore. Here's a picture of the trusses that we have in the house. Really no load-bearing walls in there. That's the pressure-treated wood down before I put the 1/4-inch Durarock. That's to separate it's a decoupling membrane. Keeps the tile from cracking. It's just 1/4-inch, like I said. The precast shower pan is fiberglass, and it sits in that mortar bed. I've got an extra mortar bed sitting on there just holding it down. And I chose Durarock to use in the entirety of this project, so the Durarock goes on after the precast pan goes in, and I'm dry fitting the toilet and the sink now just to figure out orientation. I did a lot of electrical stuff. This wiring in there was didn't meet code anymore, so I had to replace all that. I cut a pipe inadvertently and had to crawl underneath the house, so I was not real thrilled about that. I just must have nicked it when it was sitting somewhere, and it was an easy fix. This is just the living room, give you some context. More Durarock on the ceiling even. The 3x5 sheets are easier to handle. This is the mosaic tiles. I'm just dry fitting them at this point, just to figure out how it's going to look. More Durarock. And the ceiling, I think I'm showing you the lights there. There's a AquaGuard or HydroGuard. It is a waterproofing membrane that goes on the floor and the walls, because cement is pervious, so this gives you an impermeable surface to keep water from going in, even though it's going to be tiled. There's the tile going down on the floor. I messed up a spot in there. I'm sure some of you picked up on that. That's me starting the tile the first day. You've got to start that course up a couple courses off the bottom. Moving onto the back wall. There's a lot of white in this place. A lot of white grout. A lot of brightens the room up. I'm just starting to get the joint compound on the other wall, the non-wet wall. You can use joint compound on cement board. Smooths it out. It's much tougher than using sheetrock, but it seemed to work out pretty well. This is just the lights hanging down. There's the paint on the wall that knocks some of the white down a little bit, makes it look nice. I didn't talk about a lot of the work I did, like the new water heater, all the new plumbing. And that's a picture of it done with some trim work that my little brother, he came over and helped do the trim work on there, and some of the fit and finish stuff that he's really good at. That's a cat picture we had that my mom had got years ago. Just thought it was funny. That's the sink. It's an IKEA sink that I chose for this.
I think it'll hold up well. And that's just a quick montage of what I had done over the last couple months and why I haven't really worked on any other projects. It's been quite a task for one person job. I did have some help. Catherine came over for a little bit, and Clay came over and did some work, my little brother. And that was nice to have, but it's a small space and there's really not a lot of room to work. So even though I had people offering to help left and right, it's just not conducive. And then I didn't have a plan. I had drawn up and got help from people at work. I have a friend that's a plumber. He helped me do all the takeoffs and count the fittings and tell me what sizes I need to meet code and everything. It was so Carrie and Warren and Steve and all the guys at work. They wealth of knowledge. So I did have a lot of support for this thing, and I'm happy to be done with it. So thanks for watching.